I've been in this role for about a year now, and I actually just got off the phone with our business recruitment division, which has completely changed their focus here in the last month, from recruiting businesses from all around the world and traveling every week somewhere different, to now focusing almost entirely on the companies that we have here in Oklahoma, and trying to make sure that they're taken care of as best as possible. As I'm sure everybody is aware, you see the daily announcements that come out from the governor. We've got just over 2,000 cases of COVID right now, and we just reached 99 deaths as of this morning, which is terrible. Every death would be awful, but we have not been affected quite as bad as some of the other states have been, and I attribute that to what a lot of you have done, and just all across the state, folks being careful and keeping that flattening the curve thing. I always think that sounds like a Dukes of Hazzard statement, but it is true. It is something that is working here in Oklahoma. And if you had seen some of the early modeling, once this is all over, people are going to be able to talk about where we thought this was heading in Oklahoma and where it ended up heading. And I'm really proud of the way Oklahomans have handled this. In case you're wondering, as we make decisions at the Department of Commerce, I'll go through some of the things that we're doing right now. There are three influences that are influencing all of our decisions. We're trying to make sure that we find a balance between public health, economic health, and mental health. And I'll discuss those as we go down through some of this. But specifically with public health, you're going to be talking about social distancing and making sure that groups of 10 or more are not together, and the 6-foot differences, and the safer at home strategy. That's all about public health. Economic health is another part of it, and that's where the essential services come in, and identifying which ones should be open, could be open, and those that need to be closed. And then a third part, which a lot of people don't talk about, is the mental health side of it, which is why things like parks and jogging trails, golf courses, places like that where people can get out of the four walls of their house and maintain a sense of mental health. It's important to remember all three of those as we make decisions. There's 4 or 5 things here that I'll mention the Department of Commerce. The first one, and probably the biggest thing for us, is that we manage the list of the essential services in Oklahoma, and those businesses that can be open and those that need to close. In general, I will say that almost every manufacturer of some sort is considered essential in Oklahoma. We have to maintain supply chains, and I can even give you an example. There's one company in Oklahoma that a lot of their product is coming from Mexico, and that particular area of Mexico shut down all of their manufacturing, and it's affecting the supply chain here in Oklahoma, which goes into units that go to hospitals, and they're in great need right now. And so you just break down one part of the supply chain, and you mess up the whole system. So keeping manufacturers open is very important. Also on the list of essential services is mainly retailers who sell a product. And so if you sell something into the marketplace, most likely you will be considered essential. Now, we do require that if you are a retailer and bringing the general public into your venue, you have to have posted what your social distancing policies are, and make sure that those are being abided by. And then the third group, which is those mainly those that are closed right now, are those retailers that sell a service, and specifically a service where there's close interaction with the public. And so we're talking about massage parlors, barber shops, hair salons, pet groomers fall into that as well. And so a lot of those services have to be closed during this time. But closed means closed to the public. So it could be that if you're a hair salon and you have a hair care product, which I don't go to many barbershops, shockingly, but if you sell a product, you could still sell that online. You could still do some things online and be creative. It's just that interaction with the public that is a problem, and that's what keeps us safe. Second thing I'll mention, and if you go to okcommerce.gov, you can learn a lot about this, and this may relate to some of you here on this call today. But early on in this process, you'll remember there was a lot of news about the supply chain for medical products, specifically PPE, which I never heard of. I didn't know what PPE was. I had to Google it first time it came up. But personal protective equipment like the masks and the gowns that folks would wear in a hospital. There's lots of these components with the supply chain, and we really hadn't focused completely on the manufacturers of that in Oklahoma, or those who could make products like that. And so that was handed to the Department of Commerce. We have a portal on the OK Commerce website where anybody who makes that product or could make a product can sign up on there. We have hundreds and hundreds of companies that have signed up across Oklahoma, and we help to connect them either with the purchasing agents with the state of Oklahoma, or we connect them across the state, because if a police department or a fire department needs some equipment like that, they're not necessarily going to go through the state to get that kind of equipment. We serve as that eharmony.gov between the supplier and those who are needing to buy it. And so I'd encourage you, if you're a manufacturer, want to be manufacturer, or wanting to buy something like that, to go to okcommerce.gov for supply chain. We've also been given the role of being the communication agent between state government and industry. And so every Tuesday and Thursday at 2 o'clock, we host a conference call with experts from the SBA to talk about SBA assistance programs, federal dollars that are available to business and industry. We have 1,000 slots where people can sign up every Tuesday and Thursday, and we have completely blown through that with every call. So there's a lot of interest in SBA assistance. And then on Wednesdays, every hour on the hour, we have a different Zoom call with different industries within the state. So we'll do an agriculture call, an energy call, a manufacturing call, a retail call, nonprofits call, all the way through the day, all of these different industry groups. And it's with our Secretary Copeland, who discusses a lot of the same thing I'm discussing with you today, but also getting feedback from those industries on what we need to be doing. We are also providing specific caseworker type assistance with companies on SBA assistance. So I know some of you have probably tried to apply for the payroll protection program, or maybe the disaster loan program, and it's half an hour wait or an hour wait, or it takes forever. Well, we have set up about 10 people within our agency that are serving as caseworkers to help people through that application process, just as a supplement to what SBA has. Like I said, I was just talking to them a while ago. They were getting about 20 to 30 calls an hour that they were helping. Now it's down to about 2 or 3 calls an hour. And so if you're still needing assistance, go to okcommerce.gov, and that's where the phone number is at. And with that, we are encouraging companies for sure right now to be going to their banker and talking to the PPP, talking about the PPP program. I can answer questions about that if we've got them. The disaster loan program, I think they have about 20 times more applications than what they have dollars. And so that one may be a little more difficult to get into at this point. But for sure, the payroll protection program, they put a lot of money into that, and talking about putting even more into it. And then the final thing I'll mention, and we can open up for any questions that you guys have, is on Friday of last week, we released a new state assistance program that we're doing. It's called the Oklahoma Manufacturing Reboot Program. And a little bit of history behind this. Over the last 2, maybe even 3 weeks, we've been offering up to the governor a lot of different options on ways that the state could pivot with some of our programs and be able to assist Oklahoma companies. And we also are constantly watching what other states are doing. And I will tell you that other states have stumbled all over themselves with this mission of what can we do with billions, trillions of dollars coming out of Washington and things happening on a local level. How can we use state dollars to help our specific industries? And most of the time, it's more of a press release program than it is something that's going to make a long-term impact. And the governor didn't want to do that. He wanted to make sure that we are assisting manufacturers in Oklahoma to be able to reboot and change and look at new product development that can help them be competitive in this new economy. This is going to be a brand new economy when we come out of this. And so that was the precipice behind the manufacturing reboot program. We took $5 million from the governor's quick action closing fund to go toward the program. I would encourage anybody that is a manufacturer that is looking at new product development to look at the program. It's we're providing for awards between $25,000 and $150,000. The money can be used for payroll, can be used for new equipment, can be used for training, and we've had some great applications so far. We are giving priority to those that are developing a new medical device or a medical product that could go into the market right now. But we have a number of companies just looking at all kinds of changes that they could make to diversify their revenue sources right now. Dollars on that will probably start flowing in the next few days. And I know they're reviewing applications even as we speak. So anyway, like Kim had mentioned, I can go on and on and on all day. And if there's no questions, there's certainly other things that I can talk about. But Kim, does anybody have any questions?
I have no idea. I'm sure that some on here do. No chats came through. So if someone has an individual question, you are more than welcome to unmute yourself and ask your question. Oh, look at that. 2 o'clock on a Monday and no one has questions.
Chris does. He's unmuted. Go for it, Chris.
I do have a question. So I saw that the Smithfield plant in South Dakota, the pork processing facility, is closed. There's been a lot of stuff coming out that the meat industry is going to be struggling on teetering in the country with that supply chain. Do you have any news or thoughts?
No, I think you're exactly right. I actually live here in Enid. My home that I'm in here today is in Enid, and there's a very significant Tyson plant. They make food for schools, so like the mystery meat that your kids would eat at school, is probably made at the plant right here in Enid. And yes, they are very concerned about the future, and there were concerns last week about just health and safety within those facilities and making sure that if somebody had a fever and keeping that separation. And so there were a lot of plants that had to shut down for a couple of days as they went in and put in plastic between the people and put some new PPE in place for the employees. We have actually one of our calls that we do on Wednesday is specifically with farmers and food processors. And so Lopez Foods and Shawnee Mills out in Shawnee and the Tyson plants, and several of them have been involved. And yeah, there have been lots of different pressures on that industry right now, and that's been one of our challenges, really as a state. One of the reasons why we probably haven't grown over the last couple of years as much as some of the others is because we are a commodity-based state. Whenever it comes to energy and agriculture, we mine some great products and we grow some great products, but we tend to send them somewhere else to get value added to them. We need a lot more of those food processors here and energy processors, and if we can take good care of them right now, the ones that are here, then maybe we can encourage some of those others to invest in our state after this is all over. Good question. Anybody else?
Actually, yes. So the health professionals are stating or trying to put pause on what they call restarting the economy, I guess would be a way of putting it. And we are a very retail-based and hospitality-based community. And so our concerns would be the recovery process that's going to happen. And so do you guys have any predictions in regards to the small businesses that are being excessively impacted by this shutdown?
Well, we just looked over a report this morning with our leadership team. A national study came out actually from Main Street, but it's beyond Main Street programs. There are 30 million what they determine as small businesses in America. Could be retail, could be anything, but 30 million of those companies. And they're anticipating upwards of 11 million of those that may not ever reopen after this is over, which is just a shocking. That's a third of your small businesses could be done through this. A purge basically is happening in small business. And so that's been part of our discussion going forward is, okay, so if some of them are so cash poor during this process that they can't reopen, then that's going to leave a void for a bunch of startups either to happen here over the next couple of years to fill that void, or spending habits are just going to change drastically in America. And one of those two things are probably going to happen with us. So as far as timing, one thing the governor says over and over, and I absolutely love it, is that at some point we will have to restart our economy, restart this engine in Oklahoma, and it'll be a whole lot easier to restart it when it's warm than if we have to do a cold start on the engine. And so that's been part of the thought process of making sure that we don't close everything, that we don't shut down really like New York and California have had to do. So we've tried to keep as much open as possible and still maintain public health. As far as timing goes, we had thought early on, again, looking at modeling, that we would peak sometime around the first week of May. About 2 weeks ago, the modeling showed that it was going to be around May 1st. And then right before the weekend, you saw where the governor had mentioned that our peak time in Oklahoma is probably going to be around April 22nd. The modeling showed that at that point, we would have had over 460 deaths as related to COVID in Oklahoma. And that's, what is that? That's another 9 days away from now. Right now we set at 99. And hopefully we're starting to see that we've peaked and gone back down on deaths and active cases. But with some of the things that's happened in Texas the last couple of days where they've started reopening some things, I think they're probably a little early on it. But I would anticipate by early May, we're going to be analyzing our essential services list. And, Fauci had said yesterday, he doesn't think there's just going to be a switch flipped on and everybody just comes out of their houses running into the streets and we open everything back up on day one. It's probably going to be a little bit more gradual than that. And we've even been talking about it at our agency. We at the Department of Commerce, we've got 120 people that work there. There would be no way May 1st for us just to say, okay, everybody come back to work, because a lot of those folks are homeschool teachers now. and if the daycares aren't open, then they're not going to be able to come back to work or come back to the office at least to work. And so I would anticipate just within our agency, we're probably going to see teleworking happen for several more months, at least with some of our positions, just as you let all the rest of the services in the community catch up to allow your employees to come back to the office. So it's not going to happen day one, that's for sure. And I don't know if that's enough of an unanswer to give you, but as we watch the next 2 weeks, I mean, that's going to tell the whole story. If it starts spiking again, if we start seeing thousands of people testing positive and lots of deaths, then we're going to have to keep things tightened up. One question I tend to get quite a bit is, okay, are we going to shut more businesses down? And I doubt whether that would happen in Oklahoma, but I could see if things started spiking again, I could see us tightening up some of the social distancing requirements. You already see some communities in Oklahoma and around the country that are making it a requirement if you leave your house that you have to wear a mask. There's some requirements for density within a retail establishment. So if you're a 50,000 foot store, you can have a certain number of people in there per square foot, or vice versa. So I could certainly see some things like that that maybe would get tightened up. But we've watched what other states have done, and some states have said, you can't sell clothing. Clothing is non-essential. And that makes sense. I mean, you probably don't need to go out and buy a shirt. That would not be something you would have to do today to maintain survival. You don't have to go buy a shirt. But the problem is you have a place like Walmart that sells clothes, but they also sell food and sanitation supplies. And so in other states, they would actually go in and they would put yellow tape over the clothing part of the store and say, you cannot go here to buy shirts. And that's just silly. I mean, people are already there in the store. They're already out and about. It doesn't help you at all not to sell that that product within an economy. So trying to add some common sense to some of these decisions.
Do we feel like most of the decisions that are being made are with the national retailers is on a national level versus just individual state or community wide?
Yeah, I think there's some decisions that have been made, probably more financial than anything else. Especially if a nationwide retailer has a robust online ability to sell, then why even maintain that local store? Why continue to have people coming in? Now with the payroll protection program, in order to access those dollars, you have to spend the money on payroll. So you have to be paying your employees, but you also have to have less than 500 employees. So some of the larger big box retailers, their parent companies are going to have a lot more than 500 employees, and so they're not going to qualify for PPP. So yeah, many of them are allowing their folks to go on or declaring their folks on furlough or laying them off so that they'll be able to qualify for the unemployment payments right now. And hopefully they'll be able to hire them back whenever they get whenever things get opened again.
Do you think on the PPP that they will eventually work that to where chambers are qualifying for that, since we are a C6 instead of a C3?
We have had that conversation with every member of our delegation, and we've even had those discussions on the state level. Is there something that could be done for C6s? And we haven't been able to figure out anything on the state level lately. And I have not seen any movement from Washington on it, and it amazes me. I don't know where that comes from, where the C6 issue is. I don't know what makes a C6 that much different than a C3 whenever it comes to federal funding.
Right. Well, the good news is you're right, and we won't know. But the good news is now that they realize that there is a difference, maybe something will be get done. Hopefully, this will never happen again to be in that position. Second of all, you never know, because on the PPP application it does say other, so the C6 is another.
Yeah. I had the same conversation on Friday with agricultural cooperatives. They are C12s, and it doesn't actually list C12 on the list. In fact, I think it's just lists C3 and C19 or so. I don't even remember what the other one was, but they didn't list C12. And so I know the Secretary of Agriculture had spoken to the Treasury, and at one point at 10 o'clock in the morning, I was on a conference call like this and got asked and said, no, ag co-ops do not qualify. And then by 7 o'clock that night, ag co-ops qualified for PPP. So
there's hope.
That it can change. Government changes its mind sometimes.
Yeah.
So does anyone else have any additional questions besides the fact that he's in an orange room with a big OSU sign in the background?
Yes.
Put that out there, Boomer. Anyway, hold on.
Yep.
So,
one thing I might mention, if you don't mind, Kim, just as far as recovery goes, the governor has also tasked us to put together a task force for recovery. We've actually got some conversations this afternoon about what that would look like. If any of you have ideas on what the state ought to be doing as we recover from this, I mean, this is a brand new world that we live in, and never really tried to come back from something like this before. there's only so much that that you can do in the way of taking public funds and putting it toward private sources. Some of it's going to be more on the policy side. If there's some things that can be tightened up in one area or loosened up in another area in order to allow us to catapult out of this rather than just sluggishly move toward a recovery. We're certainly looking for those ideas. We're not to the point where we want to make an announcement yet. Some states have already announced big recovery teams and all that, and we don't believe it's the time to do that yet. We're still trying to make sure that our citizens are healthy and try to maintain what we have. But just know that behind the scenes, we're putting some of those thoughts together and welcoming ideas right now. Is Deidre Ebery really on this call? I see her name now on my screen.
A big deal.
She is a big deal.
Ah, she is. You gonna unmute yourself?
I also noticed she doesn't have her video on, which means
Hi.
she's
Of course.
probably did that.
We talked
Good to
over.
hear you.
Kids' computer.
Okay, gotcha.
Very safe.
Yeah. All right. Anything else I can do for anybody?
That team that you were talking about, the recovery process, would you be open to having public or business owners associated to that? Or are you focusing more on community leaders and manufacturers?
No, we're looking at everybody. Probably different industries involved. But I'm going to guess that we'll probably have a small team that we'll be able to interact a little better with. I mean, think about it. Over the next several weeks, we're probably not going to be able to assemble everybody together in one boardroom. So it's going to be Zoom calls and that kind of thing. But I'm guessing we'll have a smaller group that will help us be more fleet of foot. But then we're going to have a larger number of folks that are feeding information into that group. And we need good ideas. It seems like every time I talk to folks, I hear of other things that we ought to be looking at, and that's one of the before all of this started. People would ask me what it's like to work with Governor Stitt, and the one thing that I have enjoyed working with the governor is that whenever he sits down at a table and says, "What kind of ideas do you have?" he's really looking for ideas. I mean, this is his first time involved in public office, and so everything's new. So he is really welcoming new ideas, and we're operating the same way at Department of Commerce. We welcome ideas on how we can grow our economy. Anybody who has anything, you can send them to Kim, and she can send them to me, or go to okcommerce.gov. You can find my contact info also.
Well, we'll definitely put it out there that if they're interested or have input, that you would be the good person to send that information to. Just to reiterate, because we are such a retail and hospitality focused community because a majority of the municipalities in the state of Oklahoma, all of them actually, rely heavily on sales tax, this will have a trickle effect for months that we know of. But speaking of the hospitality tourism side of it, that is kind of the thing that Lieutenant Governor Pinnell hung his hat on. And so what's the state doing in regards to the impact this is going to have on our tourism industry?
Yep. Yeah, and I don't, of course, most of our tourism related companies can qualify for a lot of these incentive programs coming out of Washington. But I certainly don't want to get in front of the Lieutenant Governor on some of the announcements that he's hoping to make. Again, we just don't feel like it's the time to make them yet. But there have been a lot of discussions about some regional tourism efforts, day trip things, and as you look into like I say, a slow stepping out of this closed environment that we're in. I'm not sure everybody on day one is going to jump on a plane and fly to London or even to New York. I'm going to guess that a lot of your folks are going to be ready to get out and go do things. And so we're trying to be prepared for that and have some tours within a day, really focusing on Dallas market as well, and Kansas City and St. Louis and Denver and some of those large metropolitan areas, saying, hey, you don't have to get on a plane. You can drive. You can experience Oklahoma in this way. So they've got some pretty exciting marketing plans put together on that. I probably shouldn't share too many details until he's able to share it. But again, if you have other ideas on that too, it's just now being developed.
Okay.
I will mention on the retail side, though, that same report that said a third of our small businesses may not reopen. They also did a nationwide survey on retailers, and 62% of our retailers in the United States do not have online sales capabilities. And so that really woke us up to Oklahoma Department of Commerce, saying that could be an area of technical assistance where we could really help our retail sector going forward, is helping them to set up those online sales. And, that just shocked me that I guess nothing should shock me anymore, but 62% not having online capabilities. I would hope we're better than that in Oklahoma, but I'm guessing we're probably in that range.
One real quick last question, unless someone else has something. Status of the census, are you guys keeping track of
Oh, yes.
where we are?
Yes. As many of you know, I'm the state census chair, and normally every conversation I have, I mention it and just forgot today, but we are failing miserably with the census in Oklahoma right now, just to be absolutely blunt with you. We rank 42nd right now in our response rate, so that 42nd of 52 states and Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. So we are 42nd right now. Now, granted, in 2010, we were 48th in the nation, so we are better than we were in 2010, but we are way behind the national average. I will say this, before all of this started, we had spent several $100,000 on behalf of the state with a marketing campaign, and really that has kicked off here in April. And so we're hoping that those dollars and the billboard, we have 30 or 40 billboards around the state and all kinds of marketing materials out now, hoping to bump those numbers up. Southeast Oklahoma is not well right now. The Panhandle's not well, not responding well, but there's not that many people in the Panhandle, so it's not skewing our numbers that bad. There are pockets of Oklahoma City and Tulsa that are not responding well. So yeah, we need to be doing better. I did have a conversation this morning with some of our staff about if things start opening up in May. You know, one of our big pushes in February was with the libraries and telling folks, you got to go to the library. If you don't have Wi-Fi access, you don't have a computer, go to the library. All of our marketing was go to the libraries. And then mid-March, every library shut down. And so we're working on a quick strike team that once things start opening up in March or in May again, hopefully we can have some mobile units and go to those areas that are way behind on response rate and make it for where folks can go to a trailer or go, you know, we might even do our own type of enumeration, because it's not looking like the Census Bureau, they may not even send anybody out to the houses this year. If that's the case, maybe there's some ways we could do it within a community and take some kind of technology with us to the door and get people to respond that way.
So do we think they are going to move the deadline because of the fact that they can't go door to door?
They probably will. The deadline right now is the end of July, so it's still quite a while before folks have to respond. Now, according to the U.S. Constitution, they have to provide the census numbers to Congress by December 31st. I don't think there's going to be a lot of ways to wiggle around that date, and that would just mess up everything for years to come if somehow they found out a way to move that, because then by March 31st, all of the numbers have to be distributed to the states for redistricting, and so there's several deadlines that are even beyond statute. They're constitutional requirements that we have. So I don't think they'll change it much past July 31st. but they may wiggle a little bit on that. We're still going to focus on July 31st. We're going to try to get everybody we can counted. And I did see Deidre's note that said Moore is like at 54%.
No, we're rock stars, just
You
saying.
guys are doing well. I mean, you should be at 60%, but 54 is great, Deidre. I mean, keep that up.
Speaking on behalf of public libraries in Cleveland, McLean, and Potawatomi counties, we have census champions at each location. And if that's something you guys want to roll these task force out to, let us know. Let me know. I can coordinate all that for all 3 counties. It's really easy because we have someone in charge for each library.
That is great to hear. Okay.
That's Pioneer.
Yeah, I may have my. What was your name, Chris?
It's Chris Manna, M-A-N-N-A, and I'm with the Pioneer Library System. And yeah, we're part of a statewide public library push for this, but for us, each location in those 3 counties has a champion, and we work with each municipality. So.
And what do the champions do?
They coordinate with the city managers or the mayor or whoever and put a task force from each city together, each municipality together, and then they get volunteers, and they're the ones that are going to be going out to, let's say, the areas that are underserved for this to see where they can do the outreach. So that if the more information we can get, the better we can coordinate that.
Very good. Now I will give our state a little bit of an out on our percentage response because there are several components to doing the census that a lot of people don't realize. We start with this database of addresses that the Census Bureau has to put together, and they send it to the states. In our state, it goes to the Department of Commerce, and I've got 2 folks who went through all of those addresses, hundreds and thousands of these addresses, and try to match that up with information we can get from county assessors and cities and that kind of thing. And if we can find additional addresses, then we add those to the Census Bureau database. We added 350,000 addresses to their database, which was more than any other state provided. Not more per capita, but any more total addresses to the database than anybody else, because they were way out of date for our state. Now, some of those addresses were probably vacant houses or a house that burned down, or some of them are probably not going to have people in them. But because we added so many addresses, that's probably affecting our response rate a little bit because we had so many extras. But I think our goal at the end is to try to get to 4.1 million people. If we can get to 4.1 million, then that puts us probably in the game for getting our 6th congressional seat back. And right now they're estimating us at 3.95 million. So we've got to have an extra 100,000 people plus that are counted in the census to get to that range. So, so I'll give us a little bit of an out there. Maybe that's why, since we had added so many new addresses, but still, I think we can do better.
Okay, well, I think that's a kind of information. Again, if you go to okcommerce.gov, you can see the listing of calls that they do every Wednesday, and they do back to back, and there's 100+ people that attend each one of those meetings. Really valuable information always. And yeah, okay. So if no one has anything else, Brent, we can't thank you enough for taking time out of your day again,
Sure.
all the way from Enid to get on the Zoom with us. Our next call is Wednesday, and that we are focusing on mental health. So as that is one of your components that you also mentioned, that is obviously one that we're all very interested in as well. So join us Wednesday at 10 o'clock. And Brent, stay safe. Everyone wash your hands, buy gift cards, order takeout, and social distance. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent.
Thank you.